Hi, it's Monday. It's 3 o'clock, and welcome to Together Unlocked. I'm Ju Gosling, also known as Ju90. I'm the artistic director of Together 2012, who are bringing you this live stream today. With me in my East London studio, whereas viewers who watch us regularly know she's been locked in with me since last March, is our chair, the artist Julie Newman. I'm going to get you a little bit better into the picture in a minute, Julie. Everything, as always, when we switch the system on, things seem to change slightly. But first, at the other end of our virtual wheeled sofa in the West Midlands, let's have some introductions and some audio description.
So, good afternoon. Welcome to Monday and a new week of Together shows. So, I am Robin Surgeon, a business director at Together 2012 and co presenter up here in Sutton Coldfield. Today is sunny in Sutton Coldfield, but cold. I have been outside and I can assure you it is still cold. Um, I am just wearing my normal hair, which is kind of grey white with no rim black armed glasses, nicely shaven, and I am wearing. In fact, you can see more of me today than usual, which is interesting. I am wearing a grey hooded sweatshirt, which says Team GB on it and Tokyo below it with some, I'm assuming, Japanese writing, um, but doesn't have any year on it unless it's in characters that I don't recognise as the year. And some black trackies. So that's me for today.
Hi, I'm Josh Surgeon. I'm also one of the hosts, and I'm a PhD student. Today, I'm wearing a light blue hoodie with some kind of stylized writing on it, and I have hair pulled back into a kind of top knot esque hairdo.
Yes, it's interesting looking at the cameras, isn't it? You've been zoomed out, we've been zoomed in, all of this done completely automatic, thanks to the wonders of Apple working alongside our platform B.Live. But we like a bit of anarchy on this show, don't we, Julie?
Oh, yes.
So I have a self-styled hennaed Corona crop, black plastic glasses in front of green eyes. I've got pale olive skin, black wrist braces, mostly silver coloured jewellery, but also a rainbow brooch in honour of LGBT History Month. So we also have our rainbow flags behind us. And I have a black long sleeve t shirt on that says, "All you need is more." And then there's lots and lots of hearts. So all you need is more love.
Or heart.
Yes, or both. Who are you? What do you look like?
I'm Julie Newman. I'm the chair of Together 2012. Today I'm wearing my hair au casual. It continues to grow. It's predominantly gold and silver. I have dark rimmed glasses, which keep sliding down my nose for some reason.
It's because we've not been to the optician for 12 months.
There's that. And I'm wearing a blue sort of mauve long sleeve t-shirt, which of course you can't see, but you can see the t-shirt. And I'm wearing my two wolves howling at a moonstone around my neck, and I'm regaining and what's the word?
Purposing.
No, give me a clue.
Restoring, not restoring. I'm reclaiming my gay roots. I've got another check shirt on. I promise not to do this all the way through February, but there is a danger that I do have some check shirts, and so I will fulfill the stereotypes.
Yes, I think, well, they probably don't know what the stereotypes are, but yes, we will be indulging our LGBT fashion. Not mistakes. I would hate to say that. I'm just not.
Fashion mistakes?
Yes, I'm not a check shirt kind of dyke. I'm more of a kind of disco one with a bit more lipstick than lip salve on occasion, I think.
It's because you've got plenty of heart.
It's because I've got plenty of heart. So it's Monday on a Friday. We recommend things that people can do online or offline, usually free over the weekend. Did you follow up any of your own recommendations, guys?
I watched some of the athletics, which was really good. You could see kind of how much they were trying to kind of do all the COVID protocols and things. And it's just nice to watch some sport as well. Was the other thing.
Yeah, and I flicked around the SciArc site. Haven't kind of indulged deeply yet, but just kind of marveling at the amount of information that there is there. You almost need to make a list of places you want to go and visit from know what's there and then make an order of what you want to do, because it does look really fantastic.
Yes, I mean, I didn't, of course, because I was doing the show, get to the Welcome Trust event at 4 o'clock. But there's a fantastic amount on the website at the moment they've got a whole online program. So we have a highlights and links page. It's on our website under the main Together Unlocked TV page. And I'll pop that link up along with the other links and videos and pictures from today, because the February program, or I think it runs till the end of February anyway, looks really, really interesting. And there may well be a video of the Disability Arts event from Friday as well. Julie, did you explore the 2-day film competition?
I did, and unfortunately, you had to be resident in Northamptonshire, which was disappointing. But I was having a chat to Robin earlier on, and I think we both agree that in principle, it's a lovely idea. It's a good challenge, especially if you're using something like your phone or your iPad to make the film. It's so much easier. I remember about 20 years ago in Brixton, there was the 48-hour film challenge. And one of the things that made it so difficult was we had to use film cameras, and film itself. And then you had to have access to an editing suite. Well, all these things now are online, so I'm quite in favour of that.
Or doing it on your phone, indeed. Yes, I mean, we're going to get on to photography and filmmaking later in the show, along with looking at some arts apps, which I think today are pretty much all photography related as well. Later, we're also going to be looking at some mindfulness soundtracks before we finish, as always, on a Monday with our session Relax with Arwa. Arwa Jagnay is a young member of our associate drama company, Act Up Newham. She's got her own YouTube channel on a Saturday with Yoga with Arwa, and we just pop in for the last bit of relaxation. But it's Monday, the 1st of February, and that's actually quite a key day in all sorts of calendars, isn't it? It's St. Bridget's Day if you're in Ireland. It's Imbolc if you're a Celtic pagan, which is the original beginning of spring. And that's celebrated with the goddess Bridget. So you can't help thinking there's a little bit of Christian kind of usurping of older festivals there. But it makes sense, doesn't it? It's the 1st of February. In theory, the lambing season is about to begin. You can understand why farming communities would gather to celebrate that. But it's also the old 12th night, which again kind of makes sense if you were going to go back to your sort of home village for a feast and so on, which again has been happening on this island for thousands of years. All that mud, all that difficulty, and you're still in the middle of the winter solstice. I can quite see why you wouldn't get rid of your visitors till February when spring starts and you can go on, go on, go on. But what I think is interesting as well is this year, lots of the churches decided that they would celebrate it as the old 12th night and therefore keep the decorations up. And we've done that a little bit, haven't we? We've kept the cards up, partly because half of them didn't arrive till the new year. And some of mine, I believe, is still in the post because we've had a very partial post service in East London. But it's the same way people put the decorations up early. Have you heard of anybody doing that in your church, Robin? I mean, I know you've all been virtual anyway.
To be honest, no. I mean, I think it kind of Christmas finished and then it's on to whatever they're. I mean, because the majority of their focus is at the moment is very much like ours, in the sense of it being very much about community and combating isolation and
Yeah, I
working.
think some of the churches, because I believe some of the cathedrals left their decorations up. I think for the same reason that people put their decorations up early, that sort of sense of cheering people up in the dark and doing things for the children. I was quite glad to get rid of our decorations. You know, I left them up a little bit after 12th night just because 12th night was in the middle of the working week. But I was quite pleased to get them down and get rid of the dust. I think parents that have had decorations up for over 2 months, I just can't begin to imagine.
It always feels like we've had an extension when we take our Christmas decorations down.
Yeah.
I love the sparkle and the light that it puts into the dark, and I can really see why people want to keep that going. But yeah, if you're in quite a small, well, we've got a whole cottage to ourselves, but the rooms are all quite small. Yeah, you certainly suddenly get a lot more space, don't you? Julie, can you tell us anything more about Imbolc or the goddess Bridget?
Not at the moment, no.
Because you don't have your iPad.
No.
And there was me thinking you were a practicing lesbian and knowing all these things. Well, I happen to know that Bridget was the goddess of poetry. So she's and I believe then became, as the Catholics say, the patron saint of poetry. But the old goddess Bridget, she was the kind of, now who are those? There was a particular tribe. Was it the Brigantes? Brigantes?
Yeah.
And now
Brigantes.
they were one of the sort of pre-Roman tribes up in Yorkshire. And my very first, this is going back to the late 90s, my very first professional commission was to do a virtual residency, although we didn't call it that. Well, did I call it that? Yes,
Yeah.
they wanted to do a residency between an artist who worked for the Yorkshire Art House who could work on site and somebody who couldn't. And what we agreed is that if we couldn't meet in person or speak in person, we would just communicate by email. And we put all those things up on the email. And we had to find, because we were working, and I do forget Mount Grace Priory, which is one of the Catholic Church's oldest sites. And we really had to find a way through the spirituality because it was making a site-specific piece of work for a very, very spiritual site. And we became very interested in Bridget. And I finally got to see the place when we installed it. So went up to Yorkshire for the installation. And the artist Rita, who I was working with, went off to get this big sculpture and move it into the quadrangle. And one of the National Trust people said to me, or it could have been English Heritage, for the very first time, "Oh, yes, I like to think of the Brigantes coming down and drinking at the Spring House, which is where our piece started." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Oh, yes, before here, there was the Brigantes camp on the same site." So I think that kind of, yeah, that sense of worshipping, calling on, I don't know, but just having this figure that was identified with poetry and also with blacksmithing, which of course is very creative, working with metal, I just find really, really interesting. But we don't, I think, outside of the Irish communities, and there is still a strong one here, I don't think we celebrate St. Bridget's Day much in this country at all. Any thoughts?
No, not really. I mean, obviously Birmingham's probably got a very strong Irish heritage, but it's and you know, I married into a ostensibly Irish family, but it's certainly not something that's part of their you know, calendar of events.
Well, I think we should be reviving all of these events because goodness knows we need lots of things to celebrate. And it's 2 weeks to Valentine's Day, but it is, of course, as we said at the beginning, LGBT History Month. So what we're going to be doing is, just like Black History Month, we're going to be coming back and talking about LGBT plus content throughout the month. You're going to be doing some interviews for us, aren't you, with some famous people from the community. But we were sitting there this morning and couldn't remember when LGBT plus History Month started, and actually still can't, because I've been checking their website at lunchtime and it doesn't tell us. But it must be 15 years. We're trying to cast our minds back because I was actually on the panel that launched the very first History Month. So it's usually launched in the autumn for the February. And they launched the very first one at Tate Modern, because I remember sitting next to Grayson Perry, because it's always been very inclusive of everything that comes under that T+. And then you and Grayson going off for the rest of the evening together, which nobody else, particularly the organisers, were very happy about. What were you chatting about?
Motorbikes.
There you go.
I think we talked generally. I found Grayson to be just so open and easy to talk to. And oddly enough, I was looking at Grayson's Art Club last night on the television because he's starting it up again this month. And I was really impressed again at how easy he seemed to be to talk to. With he was talking to the various artists who'd contributed to his art show last year during the lockdown, and he has such a lovely soft manner about him, and I just had a lovely time. It's a shame about everybody else, but there you go. So you sort of, it's not often that a wheelchair user, an old fat wheelchair user, ever gets to sort of get the monopolize the celebrity.
Well, you were one of the guests as well, I have to remind you. So Grayson's Art Club, I believe, is that join in from, I mean, if it's more join in from home activities, which I'm almost sure it is, again, we will pop it up under the highlights and links page. And that's quite a good time to remind people that also on the highlights and links page from Friday is the Great British Art Exhibition, a very similar name. And every 2 weeks, you will be given a different theme to do a painting, a picture of any kind, and pop it up in your window to join a kind of national gallery of art. And the theme at the moment is animals, isn't it?
So I believe Grayson's Art Club doesn't formally start for a few weeks yet. It'll kick off on Channel 4, but he similarly will have a theme. And he's got 4 themes this year, so it'll be quite interesting. I think going back to the Tate business, I think what I remember at the time was how it was so prestigious. Sort of you had quite important people there, and because it was at the Tate, that gave it an air of authority.
Yes, I think the art world, and particularly Tate support for all sorts of things. I know with my other hat on as the co-chair of Regard, the National LGBTQI plus disabled people's organisation, we partnered with the Tate about 3 years ago for a Queer and Now festival, didn't we, at Tate? But I wanted to just come back to History Month before we move on again for now, because like I say, there's going to be lots and lots of content. The theme this year is mind, body and spirit, which I think is very much well-being linked to COVID. So I think it's a really great theme. History Month is aimed first and foremost at schools. It's an opportunity for all of us who've left school to not just celebrate our history, but produce our history, explain and communicate our history so it's available to young people in schools. And it was started by the Schools Out campaign, who are basically teachers who've worked for decades, probably since the introduction of Section 28, to overcome homophobia in schools. So I think that also ties in very well with so many young LGBT plus young people who really suffer in education. So I hope we're not just going to think about our own mind, body and spirit, but like you say, how that history can be used to benefit young people, to educate young people
and support them.
And support young people.
Yeah.
What we will have later in the week is news of what Regard will be doing. In the meantime, and again, I'll put this up under highlights and links too, Regard has a website, regard.org.uk. There's lots of resources on it. You can join from there, Facebook groups, email groups, free in terms of membership, and it's also free to allies. So if you aren't disabled or you aren't LGBTQI plus, but you'd like to join Regard anyway, you would be very welcome as well. So, Appdate, I believe this is our regular weekly feature on Arts Apps. I believe you and Josh are going to talk about Photoshop Camera.
Yeah, well, I hope Josh will. I kind of sprung it on you, Josh. I'm sorry about that. But I know you've been using it quite a lot, haven't you?
I used it quite a bit over the summer. I kind of played around with it over the summer. I haven't been using it recently, purely because the weather's been absolutely miserable. So I haven't wanted to go outside and kind of play around with it. But I kind of experimented a bit in the summer, and from what I could tell in the summer, they kind of add new kind of lens packs kind of weekly or fairly regularly. So I guess if you've used it more recently, you probably had a completely different experience because it probably does far more things than it used to, just in simply in what filters and things you can play around with. But yeah, it's such a interesting idea in that you're almost live editing or kind of editing before you take the photo, um,
So
which
let
is kind of
me
an
ask,
interesting thing.
because I use Photoshop a lot, and Photoshop is, as I think of it, is the professional package, which I can't afford at all because Adobe now require you to do a monthly subscription, and not just to Photoshop, but a whole bunch of other software as well. So what I use is Photoshop Elements, which is a cut down version that you can buy as a one-off, which I think is about, well, certainly over £100 still. But Photoshop Camera, which works on phones and mobile devices, is free, isn't it?
Yeah.
Completely, yeah.
And that's where I'm really interested. So how could it, I mean, because the way I work in Photoshop is obviously you take the photograph, you import it into Photoshop, and then there's lots of things you can do with it, from cropping to filters to, well, I think of it as a digital darkroom because you can do everything in Photoshop that you could do in a darkroom, which often means you can have a photo that looks very, very dark or very, very overexposed. And by the time you've finished, it's absolutely perfectly balanced as it would be in a sort of manual traditional darkroom. But how does it work then that you set it up before you take the photo?
Um, you can do kind of that side of stuff. You can play around with the light and the color and saturations and contrasts and things like that. But then I think where it really comes into its own is the where it kind of superimposes things, foreground or background or whatever. So like one of them is I can't remember the name. It's like a comic book one. So it made it look like it was kind of pop arty or comic book. There was ones where you could put kind of fake night skies in, or slightly kind of trippy ones where you could, there's giant burgers and ice lollies and whatever. And then, but through to stuff, whether there's kind of tie-ins, there's like a Billie Eilish related one, I think, to the new album. Not that I've listened to it, but I know it was in there. And then with History Month, there was a couple of different Pride lenses where you could kind of it would give you options on rainbows or turning lens flares into rainbows and things like that. Because I think it was around that kind of Pride time when I was looking at the app, so I think that had come in as part of it. So there'll be new stuff for this month, I don't know, but
So much, much more choice than Instagram.
yes, yeah. Well, to be honest, I haven't used a lot of Instagram, but I think it's much more than a color filter. It's got color filters, but then it's got, if you then wanted to spend 8 hours in Photoshop creating this amazing whatever, it just goes, oh, do you want this? And you go, yes, please. And then it just kind of somehow uses really smart computers and algorithms to put that on whatever you point it at.
That does sound cool. So, Julie, I think this first photo probably is just a simple colour photo. I'm going to put it on solo in the hope that the program doesn't turn it on its side, but forgive us if it does.
Yeah, this is a snapshot, if you like, with my phone. Oh, actually, no, with the iPad, of topical rainbow hat and rainbow mittens. Unfiltered, completely unfiltered. And then I used a filter which is called Artful. And it was quite interesting because not only did it change the colors completely, but it also changed the texture. It brought out the knitting, I thought, in quite an interesting way.
Okay, I'm just going to take that off if we just pause for a minute. Yeah, I thought it really pulled out the stuff. So that's just a basic filter, but a filter that you couldn't get in Instagram, essentially.
I'm a bit like Josh. I don't really use Instagram very. I must actually make an effort this month. I think my thinking about how you could use the the app itself is that I think it's probably designed for social media sharing. Would you agree with that, Josh?
Yeah, I think I know it's certainly got kind of the kind of direct share things built into it, so you can put it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, MySpace. I think I don't think MySpace is an option, but yeah, and like you said, it's got those. But I think what it also does from memory, and it might be an option, but it still takes an original photo. So even if you took it directly with a filter, because you can apply filters kind of afterwards, even if you take it with a filter on, I think it's still, you essentially get two pictures. You get the one with whatever it's doing, but you also still just get a, blank photo. I don't know if that's still in there or not. But I think that's a unique thing, I guess, for it to do. I don't think that is what other apps would do of the similar kind of style.
But I can see again that if you're going to be a sort of all bells and whistles, made by a professional photography company, of course you'd want to have, I won't call it a raw photo because that's also now a format, but that original photo as well. I mean, really and truly, it sounds like for anybody, even if they're really experienced with Photoshop, if you're new to social media, this definitely sounds like such an easy way to do it.
I would agree with that. I think what I found interesting was that you can also use it on photographs that you've already taken.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be using it to snap a shot. You can actually take a photograph. I would suggest copying it first and then, just have a little play around with it. And it gives you a sense of adventure with something that could be quite, sort of, well, sort of like if I see something I can take a photo of, you know what I mean? It expands it is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I mean, I like, and I wish you guys had brought me some examples, but we will share some later. I really like the idea of just being able to add clip art in. Again, if you spent £1,000 plus on Photoshop, you still wouldn't be able to do that without manually going and searching for all the clip art on the internet and then downloading it, yada yada yada. So yeah, I mean, I think everybody likes to send just quick, fun photos sometimes, don't they? And that's exactly what that kind of thing is really, really handy for.
Yeah, absolutely. I tried to use one of the lenses that Josh is talking about. I downloaded some really for the first time, and I found that quite interesting.
Shall I just pop this one up?
That's me as a galaxy. I love it. I got so excited about that. And it was just literally I was sitting on the sofa, I'd put the lens on, I turned the camera on my iPad and took a snap, and all of a sudden I was a galaxy.
Yeah, so for audio description, this is a very dark picture with galaxies kind of warped around. Well, you can tell it's Julie's face purely because you can see the glasses. It looks like something quite scary out of Doctor Who to me. But when you say you put a lens on, to me as a traditional photographer, that would be physically taking a lens and popping it on my camera or popping it on the iPad. But you don't mean that, do you?
It's the virtual. It's the virtual side of that. So that I found the lens on the app called Galaxy, and I used that when I snapped the picture of myself, my little selfie. So it's virtually putting a lens onto the lens of the camera.
And did you do that the way Josh said, so you could already see what it looked like as you were lining it up?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I imagine that's the great joy of being able to put the effect on first, isn't it? Is actually to sort of see it in action and to be able to get the best out of it.
It is up to a point. What they seem to like is they request face, so that if you're doing some of the lenses, you have to have a face. I tried it on Precious's face, and for some reason it didn't recognize her face. I was terribly disappointed.
Yeah, I think that is disappointing. Well, I don't know, Photoshop, you've got all that money, but if you haven't done the animals, Josh is about to tell us there's a special lens for that.
There might be. There probably is somewhere. No, I think there is definitely, and I have no idea how somebody far smarter than me. There must be some sort of, maybe not AI driven, but there's some sort of kind of smart algorithm where it looks for certain markers. So, for example, with that one, it kind of looks for a human face.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
I've done ones with like with the sky ones, for example, and it's like, please point me somewhere with the sky, and then it makes the sky the thing, but it doesn't do it to everything else. So that there is some sort of, yeah, there's something going on that with certain things it might be slightly restricted, but if you look one that does something for the sky, if you point it at the floor, it's probably not going to work great. But I think that's
Yeah,
what it'll
no,
be, that
I
it
think
highlights stuff for you.
that makes sense. And again, if you can't afford a camera and you can't afford Photoshop, a Photoshop camera is definitely the way to go, isn't it? I think the other thing I've found, before we move on, working with all sorts of things in Photoshop, is the original image doesn't have to be fantastic. And I say that because people are probably thinking, well, my camera phone doesn't have a fantastic lens. It's not got 4 or 5 lenses like the latest kind of Samsung or the latest iPhone. It really doesn't matter. A good picture is a good picture. It doesn't have to be pin sharp. It doesn't have to be in 4K. Lots of painted pictures are very, very soft. So, yeah, and we'd love to see some photos. Particularly, I'd love to see some photos that weren't taken by these guys. Sorry. So, sticking with photography and film, and also harking back to the weekend, it was the Great British Garden Bird Watch. Or no, it's not called quite that, is it?
The big garden bird.
Big Garden Bird
Big
Watch.
garden bird watch. I was going to say word watch. It's bird watch. It's the bird watch.
And people were invited to spend an hour observing the birds in the garden, identifying them using their app if necessary. And I think they've got to the middle of February to send the records in. Unsurprisingly, I didn't have an hour to look out the window and to do nothing else all weekend, so I did not take part. But you did, and we're going to talk a little bit more about nature photography and filming, which of course is something we talked about a lot last year as well, very much from the window. Did you manage to watch any birds, guys, or did anybody else in the Surgeon household?
Well, I spent a lot of Saturday actually looking out the window because it was snow. It snowed nearly all day Saturday
Wow.
here. It was too wet. We didn't get an accumulation, other than of melted snow. But so there was very little out. I mean, there just it was just miserable. So whilst I was looking, I can't actually remember seeing a single bird. And normally, um, our garden is pretty bird filled. Actually, I mean, we get woodpeckers and all sorts in the summer.
Lovely.
But so yeah, I don't think the weather was really, certainly here. It was just cold and miserable. I'm afraid to be a squib.
Julie, how did you get on?
Well, very similar actually. I tried it on Sunday.
Except it didn't snow here.
No, without the snow, but it was terribly windy and very, very overcast. The light was very, very low, and I spotted about 5 pigeons on rooftops in the distance and a solitary gull of some description, but too far away to identify. After that, there was nothing, absolutely nothing. And it is difficult around this part of London. We don't really, because we're not near a park.
I think as well, we're in Canning Town, about a quarter of a mile from the Nightingale, and this was built on marshes. So if you look back, well, I think this house was built about 120 years ago, and if you look back before that, it was Plaistow Marshes. And of course, the water birds have largely gone, or they're just found right down by the docks. But you don't have these historic patterns of thousands of years. So yeah, we're pretty much seagulls, pigeons, and blackbirds. We've usually got blackbirds, but I'm not sure it's the time of year for blackbirds yet.
Magpies.
Yeah, we often see magpies. Now, you have sent me a photo. Shall I pop it up now, Julie, and then you can tell us what it is?
Oh.
Go for it.
This is from my house, from my hedge, which I actually planted with the help of my mum, sort of like 12, 13 years ago. I've got little hedge sparrows. They're not house sparrows because they don't have a little black head. But this was taken with my phone. And I wanted to point it out, not because it's a good photo, because it's not, but I wanted to point out the
Yeah, so we've got green. Do you know what's the plant? Because it's white, it's sort of whitey grey
mahonia.
sky, isn't it? And it's got the mahonia plant, and then you can just see two hedge sparrows, one right in the middle outlined, and then there's one over the left, kind of hiding within the mahonia. And was
Yeah.
this from a window? Because it's very, very
No,
subtle.
it was actually I've got gravel in my yard, so I put myself in position against a window with a window behind me, so that I had something to lean on, and was just waiting for them, because at my house they tend to flock. I've got a flock of about 30 of these little things that seem to spend time between my sorry.
Yeah, I just need to say for everybody else who was using the captions, we had a slight technical problem, but our captioner is back again now, and I just had to do some fiddling around when she came back on the show. So sorry about that, Julie. I mean, I remember being with you at your house last February, and this whole, I mean, I never see anything like it in Canning Town, but this wonderful flock. And were they hedge sparrows? All these tiny birds
Yeah,
tweeting away.
hedge or tree sparrows, but they, yeah, absolutely, and they make so much lovely song. But I get a lot of blackbirds, thrushes, tits. You know, the blue tits come a little bit later in the year, because I think I'm near a park, and I think that makes a difference. What I was going to say in relation to the photography of this is that one of the difficulties you have when you're trying to take a photograph of birds using a phone is that if you do a close-up and you expand it so that you can get in closer to the birds, you lose the definition. And you're almost better in a way of taking something that's slightly further back and then enlarging it once you've taken the shot, because you don't lose so much of the definition that way.
Yes, I think that's interesting. I think the digital zoom is less effective, like you say, than having something low res and boosting it. But it's that digital zoom that kind of the further you go in. I mean, again, I think Josh has got the latest iPhone, and my guess is you can do all sorts of things on that you cannot do with earlier iPhones or lesser phones. But I think even then, the digital zoom is not going to be perfect.
No, I mean, you can do a lot with it. Let's not underestimate it. But I think what's also interesting in that photograph was that the sky was completely washed out. It was probably a bit like today, where there was very little sunshine or blueness. It was particularly overcast. And again, sort of thinking back to the discussion we were having earlier, it's quite possible to change that using filters or using apps, and actually change that around. I use this photograph with Waterlog, which is an app I've talked about before, which again, using filters, takes it into something that's watercolorish.
Yeah, I'll pop that link up again from last Monday. We just looked at Waterlog as a free app that's available for all devices, and you can, well, it's supposed to be making it look like a watercolor picture, but your point was that if you're going to illustrate something you've written, you can take quite ordinary looking photographs, and just by using that app, transform them and make them look incredibly decorative. Josh, last year you were very much leading on the nature photography from home, and particularly stuff out the window, and now you've got the iPad, the iPhone, whatever it is. We're going to be expecting you to do more of that. What were your tips from last year? Because you managed to get some real close-ups of insects, didn't you, as well as plants and things, and then of course now you've also got your drone. I don't know whether you're going to send the drone out
Once it stops raining. I will. It's similar to what like you've both already said around kind of digital zoom stuff. I will say that like I have the iPhone 12 Pro, so it's got the kind of super duper camera on it. So it has an optical zoom and a digital zoom. But I was taking stuff in the garden. I think I was taking a photo of a cat because it was funny to show somebody.
Speaking of which, if anybody's wondering what the dark patch on our studio that suddenly appeared, it's actually a large black cat called Leonardo. At the same time, I believe our captions may have gone down again. We will have a fully captioned recorded show up later tonight. So apologies if you've been using the captions. Please do come back and watch the recording.
Yeah, and I kind of whacked it all the way up to kind of ×10 zoom. And it actually didn't look too bad, but I was also really far away from what I was taking. So I don't know whether that's an improvement in the camera or it was just luck. Could be either.
Yeah, I was going to say, because the one thing I found with the digital camera is the macro stuff. Actually, trying to take something really close, it really doesn't like it. It
Yeah.
can't focus that close, and have to take it that little bit further away and then zoom in and hope you've got, and then then you can get quite a clear picture of something quite small. So it's kind of almost the opposite to zooming in.
Yeah, I think with some of the kind of really up close stuff that I put on the show, I know there was a bee photo and a couple of flower photos. I took those with a proper camera, with a a macro kind of lens on it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's, again, it is about top of the range smartphones, but if you've got the phones that have got more than one camera, so this is an iPhone, and you can see on the back there's 3 cameras, and what they do is they set them at different. They're set at different things. They're all fixed focus, but you've got one quite close, one further away, and one very distant. And that's one of the way it works. So I'm kind of thinking they probably do work better for close up than the ones that's just got one camera. But if
Yeah, I know.
you'd think they could just add in another one for macro, wouldn't you? Because your phone's got about 4 cameras on it, hasn't it, Josh? I think it had one more.
3.
I think it had one more than the 11 Pro.
Yeah, it's got 3 cameras on it, but it has like LiDAR scanners and does kind of HDR and things. So the cameras haven't improved, but the fact that it essentially now has a similar capability to a professional film camera, or at least a 4K one. I know like proper film cameras got to like 8K now, which is insane. But it does some pretty incredible things. I know that years ago, I assume it's still a product. You could buy like macro lenses or kind of telescope lenses that would fit onto an iPhone, and it'd kind
Yes,
of clip
or
over. I don't know if I've never used one. I assume they still make them.
yeah, I mean, funny you should say that. But again, if you've got a cheap smartphone, and I think the ones we issue to our staff are about 150 quid, but they're still good phones. They still do things that you couldn't have spent thousands and thousands to do a while ago. But yeah, I've got a set, and they're really straightforward. You sort of stick this little magnetic circle around your phone, around the bit of that's the camera, wherever that is, and then these other lenses just pop on as you need them. So I've got an extreme fisheye, for example, which you could only really get as a filter effect otherwise. And I think I've got an extreme close up. I haven't used them for ages because I've had the iPhone and I used it with earlier phones. But you're right, you can actually get physical lenses and not just the app lenses that you can attach. I mean, as always, we would love to see viewers' photographs. It really shouldn't be an issue that it's raining. I mean, we've got, well, on Wednesday, I'm pleased to say, with the repair of their router, we will have Merlot, the assistance dog, taking us for a walk again. We've had virtual nature watch with Merlot, Starrett, and Hannah going through all the snow, and you haven't even stuck your camera out the window. Did you
Yeah,
get
I mean,
snow photos?
given the amount of outdoor clothing that I own from my youth, it's kind of embarrassing that I haven't gone outside in the rain. But I will certainly try and get some more. I mean, at the moment, there's just not a huge amount of wildlife about. I think just same reason as me. They don't want to go outside
I know, but
or wander out from wherever they're hunkering down. But
Well,
I
if
mean,
anybody can't sleep at night, it is the beginning of the foxes season, isn't it? They are currently apparently running around calling for mates.
we had one in the garden on
yesterday.
Saturday or Sunday. Was it yesterday? Yeah, there was a appeared in the garden and then disappeared again. But
Who's going to tell him? He should have got the camera out.
it was like, oh look, there's a fox. Die fox. It was kind of
Well,
when I had time to get it out of my pocket. But
He's always saying he was a scout. Where was your prep?
exactly, I know. I should have been out there in my little
Bivvy.
in me bivvy, hiding in the
Well,
trees.
if you know they're coming, I kind of recommend doing all of this from inside, but through the window. But yes, I mean, back in the noughties, I was artist in residence at the National Disability Arts Collection and Archive down in Dorset, and we had a caravan there. And I don't find it easy, you can imagine, with my medical conditions to get out early, but just occasionally I'd manage to get myself out at 6 o'clock in the morning. And you might have to sit for 2 hours. But it was, yeah, that's how I've got multiple photographs, for example, of deer quite close up. So, these days, if you're bored by lockdown, and goodness knows lots of people are, again, it's a bit like slow TV, isn't it? It's that time where maybe sitting out the window looking for an hour to see if a bird or a fox comes along. I know our dogs do it all the time, don't they definitely were doing bird watch yesterday, and occasionally some poor pigeon got blown past the window and the cat would be like this.
The cats loved it. But they do a regular thing every morning where each one in turn goes up to the window, which is very easy for them to see, and just spend a little bit of time just staring very intently out of the window. Do your cats do that?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
they do.
I was-
And they do it in both. They do it more out of the front of the house,
which is
which
weird.
is a really exciting driveway with some cars on it, as opposed to the back window that's got kind of all the garden and the trees.
Yep.
I mean, they do like to go bird watching. I think they call it menu browsing rather than. But
I mean, I think we all stare out of the window, don't we? Because we've been shielding this long. It's the only way to see the outside world at all. But like I say, not for an hour at a time, unless I've got something really specific in mind. We're moving towards the end of the show, and as always, we relax with our. And I think with LGBT plus History Month and the Mind, Body, Spirit theme, we might be doing even more relaxing this month. But Robin, you found a really useful. Is it a well-being soundtrack? Did you say?
Well, no, not exactly. I mean, I'm going to run these together because it works really nicely. Because I was going to say about the kind of the slow, slow TV, slow living, nature photos. Obviously not at the moment, but I used to really enjoy going fishing, and most of it was simply about sitting still and watching and listening.
Do you
But
think fishing's exempt from lockdown rules? Not me for
no,
that reason. I was so interested. Almost nothing is exempt, but as long as you don't fish with people, and of course, what they say is, fishing, you can't sit next to the next, you can't sit within 2 meters of the next fishing person. So yeah, fishing is still allowed. So if anybody fancies fishing safely, then absolutely.
well, I mean, when I was a teenager, I would go and break ice to fish. Now I can wait till I can break open a cold Coke. But I was going to is that with that, the advent of having a phone means I've got some absolutely beautiful pictures, particularly early morning pictures, when that you get like a sort of 3 foot layer of mist that's just sitting on like 6 inches above the water, and coots emerge out of it and stuff like that. And the reason I'm kind of adding that in there is no, there's I was listening to, having been said I don't read newspapers, which isn't entirely true, just digital ones. I do listen to the radio a lot, and on Saturday morning there was a really interesting article with a woman, and she's a composer called Nanita Desai, and she without making the story too long, as part of a research project, working with the University of Exeter and a well-known nature filmmaker, Chris Watson, that the BBC have now got a website or a whole massive, not yeah, it's a website which is called Soundscapes for Wellbeing, and it starts with introduce the whole introduction of it is about um, the use of adding sound to nature films that enhance the experience of it, but not just to make it as if you're there, but it's a little bit more manipulated to actually bring a positive well-being experience to it. Um, and it's and it I mean, it's a huge resource. You can go off and you can become part of one part of the research with it. But a bit that might be really useful, and I've sent the link through, is as linked to it, the BBC have put up something like 33,000 sound clips with a mixer, and then you can create your own nature sound effects films. And I believe, I mean, I didn't have the time to go into it properly, but I think you can also bring in your own sounds into the mixer into it, and then and create, therefore, do a film in your garden, but then build your own soundtrack around it, but very much not in the kind of sense that we've talked about before about telling the story side of it, but the different reflection, and about trying to bring out how much of nature is good for our well-being, and whether that is, I love the rain, actually. I mean, not when it's freezing cold, but um I used to love pushing in the rain and getting soaked, absolutely soaked, but it was great and it's lovely. Or again, sitting by a lake, and it absolutely pouring with rain, but watching, I
Yeah.
suppose it's the physics of the water hitting the rain, and the lake and coming up, and absolutely brilliant. Really, really, really good.
It sounds fantastic. And of course, the other thing that links back to is we talked quite a bit last year on a Monday about slideshows, not hugely, but we certainly came back to it on more
Yeah,
than
yeah,
one occasion. And what a great way to make a film, just by taking your photos, putting them into a slideshow, and finding appropriate BBC quality sound to put with it.
yeah. It does look really
Lovely
good.
thing to do. Again, we would love to see them and to share them on the website. Well, we'll be moving over in a minute to relaxing with Arwa. We really enjoyed relaxing with Robin and Josh last week when Arwa had a router problem. So we'll be coming back to doing that again. And also, I saw at the weekend there was a Paralympian whose name, forgive me, I've forgotten, who was talking about the lack of accessible exercises and keep fit for disabled people, and particularly people shielding, and why were none of these YouTube channels being inclusive. So we're going to have a think about that, and maybe we'll be popping a few more exercises in, or indeed looking at doing something a bit different as well. In the meantime, on Wednesday, as usual, we have the Pop Up Poetry Club. And on Wednesday, it is Read Out Loud Day, which is a day all around the world for reading out loud. So we're going to be celebrating that in our Pop-Up Poetry Club on Wednesday morning, and also in those poems on Wednesday afternoon, along, of course, with the Clockwork Paralympics, where we compete for the right of a teddy bear to wear a gold medal and take part in the virtual bear hunt. Sharp-eyed viewers will see that, in fact, the one behind me this week is a bird, but that was because it was promoting the Great Garden Birdwatch. Also on Wednesday, of course, we've got Josh with gaming and sport, and indeed much, much more. On Friday, we come back to dressing up to go out to stay in. We all love to see you as Bernie Sanders. But we would love to see your photos as well. And I should have asked, I just will quickly, Josh, on Photoshop camera, are you able to copy memes and put them against different backgrounds?
I assume so. You can edit images that you already have saved. So
Because I've always
if you
wondered,
import a meme, I assume yes.
But I think also it's fun to know how to create memes, and it sounds like this is quite an obvious one to be cutting things out and just sticking things on. We'll investigate that anyway and come back to it. But now I think it's goodbye from East London.
Goodbye from West Midlands.
And we will relax with our thank you again for this video.
I want you to imagine that you in your island and you are with the flower and you're with your nectar and you are going forever around the island. So on your wall you see another talking flower that knows everything about you already. So you pick it up. So you take it on your journey. You are feeling calm. You have no worries, no coronavirus anymore. You are so relaxed. Nothing worry you. Then you are sitting by the sea and ahead of you you see a whale in the ocean and the whale is looking at you. It's a talking whale. I know why it's a talking whale. That looking at you. And it wants you to ride on it. So you're going to ride on around the ocean. Around the ocean. Now, the color of the water, happy color. So you're on this whale and you can go wherever you want. If I were you, I would go to Italy. But that's me. You can go wherever you want on this whale. Now, and you can name this whale, or you can call it whale. It's totally up to you. You are on this whale, and the wind starts to the wind. It's not a heavy wind. It's a good wind. a good one. And you're riding around the ocean or the sea on this rail. Yeah. Oh, the rail and top. It's a top in a rail. And it's a very nice rail. Take a big bit and no, I'm not going to talk for a while, and I just want you to imagine yourself on that rail and you're going on a journey, a special journey. You can do wherever you want on that rail. And when you ready, done that in the room.